there's a challenge that gets more and more challenging as time goes on. There are so many players having good seasons. And for me to discuss all of them, it's not a matter of me not wanting to. It's a matter of me looking at the length of videos and saying if they get much longer, there's not much point in me posting them. So I try to keep it short. When I'm doing, like, whether it's a preview or a review, I try to make sure it's about 2 minutes per game. And sometimes I don't have... What's going on over there?
I didn't know it was going to start playing. I didn't know.
Jingle Bells? Thankfully,
no,
I think that's...
No. I found the crappy song I was talking about.
I think that's public, so I don't think I have to worry about copyright for Jingle Bells.
You're fine. But
no, my new opening song for all of my videos ever will be Jingle Bells.
Happy birthday. It's not copyright anymore. You're welcome.
Yeah, okay. So I wanted to do a video where I talk about 10 players who aren't being talked about, who are in the top 100 scorers, and not a lot's being said about the fact that they're in the top 100 scorers. Let's go. In 10th place is number 74, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins is having a good season, and it's a good thing because Draisaitl, in between being hurt and not being the same as he was last year and issues that the Oilers have been having, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins being in the top 100 at 74, he's played 33 games, 13 goals, 10 assists, 23 points. The numbers I have here are before today's games. Today's games being December 17th, if you're tuning in later. Nugent-Hopkins is quietly having a very good year. And I figured, you know what, this is a video where I'm going to try to make things right and talk about guys I'm not talking about or who the media hasn't been talking about. Number 51. From the Vegas Golden Knights, William Karlsson. 31 games, 15 goals, 11 assists, 26 points. No one expected this kind of production from Karlsson. I doubt Karlsson would have wagered on himself scoring this many goals this early in the season. It's partly the balanced attack of Vegas, and it's partly the fact that he's just better at what he does than people give him credit for. And I guess Vegas is giving him a chance he didn't have before he got there. Offensively, we knew coming into this season he was a good penalty killer. What we found out this year is he's pretty good at everything else too. Number 8, sitting 48th in scoring, John Klingberg of the Dallas Stars. He is sitting 34 games, 4 goals, 23 assists, 27 points, and he's 48th in the NHL in scoring. He is an offensive dynamo. I know his defense is spotty in places, but man, offensively the guy's deadly. And being top 50 in scoring in the NHL as a defenseman is impressive. And it's something that I don't hear a lot being said about Klingberg in terms of when I watch TSN or Sportsnet. And I just, outside of actual Dallas broadcasts, the Dallas broadcasters talk up Klingberg a lot. But that's what this is about, is talking about guys who are having really good years that maybe you don't know about, maybe you do, and I'll discuss it. And I tried to limit this to one guy per team, but there is a team that's got 2, and then there's another video idea in here based on a guy that you won't hear about who actually is in the top 100. Because there's kind of a remarkable story going on that I realized today, and I wanted to sort of discuss this as its own video. Number 7... and he is sitting 44th in scoring. Also from Dallas. You always hear about everybody else, but Radulov, 34 games, 11 goals, 16 assists, 27 points. Radulov's actually putting up really solid totals for Dallas right now. And Ben and Sagan get a lot of the attention and a lot of the publicity. But Radulov, to me, offensively, has been more dynamic. Ben is the more powerful forward. He bowls his way through, and Radulov's more finesse of the two. And Sagan, he gets his points any which way he can, and Sagan will always get a lot of attention. He was a number 2 draft pick. Radulov, not as much. And he deserves credit for this season. At 39, and in 6th place on this list, from the Minnesota Wild is Eric Staal. So coming into tonight's game, and I didn't see whether he scored in tonight's game or not, 32 games, 12 goals, 16 assists, 28 points. Eric Staal was left for dead when he became a free agent. When Minnesota signed him to a 3-year deal, I was one of the ones that said that's crazy. He shouldn't get that. I'm pretty sure it was a 3-year deal. And I was one of the ones who said, oh, he shouldn't get that. Minnesota's crazy. They think that he's something that he's not. Look what happened after he went to the Rangers. Blah, blah, blah. I was wrong. Dead wrong, completely wrong. And Staal is once again proving the naysayers to be wrong. 39th in scoring in the NHL is something that I don't think any of us had expected after his career fizzled out in Carolina, and then he moved along, and it didn't get any better after he moved along. But there's something with him in Minnesota. It really works for him. He's clearly got some synergy with his teammates there, and he's still producing. Last year he produced, and I think some of us went, well, it's one season. Let's see if it's just a one-off or if it's a trend. Maybe he really is back. Yep, he really is back. Number 5, and sitting 38th on this list. And I mention this only because I know what people are going to say. Yevgeny Namestnikov in Tampa. Yeah, I know. Look at his line mates. But look at the line mates of a lot of guys that score a lot of points. That's not an unusual argument. Namestnikov has played 32 games, and I'm this is previous to today's that he sits in 38th spot. 13 goals, 15 assists, 28 points. Very good totals. Being a center with good line mates doesn't necessarily equal a lot of points, and I'm going to mention it from a Vancouver perspective. Brendan Morrison played between Bertuzzi and Naslund. Bertuzzi and Naslund put up a ton of points. Morrison didn't in comparison to them. Namestnikov, to me, is a more talented version of Brendan Morrison. And his production in Tampa is one of those things that shows how absolutely devastating Tampa is, how many different weapons they have to use, and it is an incredible story that has unfolded in Tampa so far this year, and he's a big part of it. And you don't hear about it because, of course, Stamkos and Kucherov are the ones we're watching. There are other players that get mentioned. There's another one I have on this list, and I know people are going to say you hear about him, which is why he's 4th on this list. Might as well just get him out of the way right now, and that's Brayden Point. Now, you've heard about Brayden Point doing well. 34 games, 14 goals, 17 assists, 31 points. Brayden Point is staring at a potential 75-point season right now. Maybe 80. Brayden Point is legit, and it's funny because at the end of last year, I watched a lot of Tampa games, and they came so close to making the playoffs, and I said, I love this Brayden Point kid. And there were some that said, well, yeah, he played well, but when Stamkos is back, he's going to have a reduced role. It'll be Stamkos, Johnson, and then, he'll be in that third-line role if he's even on the team. He played well, but it was a crap team, so it didn't take that much talent for him to get to the top. And, I never wavered on Point because I trust my eyeballs, and my eyeballs told me that Brayden Point was a pretty good player, and he is. He's fantastic. And even though he shows up in some of the highlight reels, I don't think that it really comes across just how much of a complete player this kid is already. I talk up Brock Besser a lot in Vancouver, and if Brayden Point played in Vancouver with Besser, I would be over the moon excited for the two of them together. Because to me, they play a similar game, except Point is a center. And depth at center is such a huge thing, and Tampa has a truckload of it. Number 3, and he's sitting 22nd on the list coming into tonight again. I don't know if he scored tonight. Vincent Trocheck in Florida. So 32 games played, 13 goals, 19 assists, 32 points coming into tonight's action, and he's 22nd on the NHL points list. I talk a lot about Florida. I talk a lot about how Florida's not playing well. Florida needs to improve. There's a lot of things that I talk about with Florida. And I want to give credit to Trocheck for putting together a very good season on a team that's not putting up very good stats. Florida may not be a good team, and they showed it again in Vegas tonight. They may not be a very good team, but Trocheck is a part of a more viable future for the franchise. I think Florida as a franchise is better off than some people may realize. Because I think there's a lot of good young prospects up front. And I think while they don't necessarily have a lot of guys that I think are blue chippers on the blue line, they do have Ekblad. I wanted to say Eklund, but it's not Eklund. Pelle Eklund's been out of the NHL for a while. They have Ekblad, who's I still think going to be a stud on the blue line. They have Matheson. They have McCoshen coming along as well. Goaltending-wise, we'll see what happens after Luongo and Reimer have moved along. But there's a lot of things to like in Florida if you like young players. Tons of things to like with Florida. So we'll see where that goes. But for right now, and in this video, for this video's sake, Trocheck is having a very good season. And it shouldn't be forgotten. Number 2, sitting at 15th in the league, is Anders Lee, who in 33 games, 20 goals, 15 assists, 35 points. Anders Lee on pace for about 45 goals this year. Maybe 50. And we talk a lot about Tavares. We talk a lot about Bailey now. Bailey's in the top 10 in scoring. It's, Bailey is the one to talk about right now. I've noticed that a lot of Canadian sports broadcasters anyways have kind of caught up on the whole Josh Bailey thing this year. They've kind of caught on to what Bailey's doing, but I don't hear Lee a lot. I hear, well, he had another goal tonight, and then that's about it. They don't talk a lot about what Anders Lee means to the Islanders, how important that goal scoring is, how much depth that gives the Islanders up front, that they don't just have Tavares and Bailey, they have more that they can throw at the opposition. That if a matchup is there to prevent Bailey and Tavares from scoring, there's somebody else who can break through. And Lee's had a very good season. And at number 11, and I will admit, he's having an excellent season right now, Nathan MacKinnon. And, it was between MacKinnon and Landeskog, and Landeskog's having a good season as well. Landeskog's in the top 100 as well. But for me, Nathan MacKinnon, what he's done this year is he's kind of become what he was supposed to be when he was drafted. And because the Avalanche are very often at the bottom, it's easy to forget. Denver is not considered... it's funny. Denver is an NHL city. When you think of Colorado, you think, yeah, they can play hockey in Colorado because it's cold and they've got that, it's mile high, right? Yeah, of course. And that's great. That's great for hockey. And yet, when I watch ESPN coverage or Fox Sports coverage, through feeds that I get on my NHL Center Ice, they talk a lot about Chicago. They talk a lot about Pittsburgh. They talk a lot about the Rangers, the Kings. The Avalanche are kind of forgotten. And in Canada, they don't get talked about much at all. I admit that. And MacKinnon's season is kind of sliding under the radar. And if he can crack that top 10, it may get better for him. He may get more attention. But he's kind of tied to that franchise's fortunes as well. So until Colorado's in a playoff spot, he's not going to get talked about as much as some of these other guys. And, of course, Connor McDavid, and I'll get into something I read about him in another video that I'm going to do that just left me just bewildered. Read this yesterday and I went, wait, are they seriously, they mean this? I actually thought they said something as sort of ironic about McDavid, or maybe they were being, facetious or kidding around, and they weren't. MacKinnon is the guy that people don't talk about very much. MacKinnon is the guy that if Colorado gets to contender status, it'll be with MacKinnon and Rantanen leading the way. And I don't know if Landeskog still stays there for that. I think Landeskog at some point gets traded out. He's helping his trade value with the goals he's had lately. I think he is the piece that moves out. I think Duchesne was the first piece. I think Landeskog would be the second. And I think they'd use him as well to bolster the blue line. Potentially look at upgrading goaltending. And, prospects. Young kids. That's what it's all about. They got Makar coming up as well. And if Makar is what he's supposed to be, and if they get a good top draft pick this year as well, Colorado could make some noise as soon as next year. And then we'll start talking about MacKinnon. So there you go. Those are the 10 guys flying under the radar who are actually having excellent seasons in the NHL this year. Let me know your picks in the comment section below. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're just passing your way through. And hey, thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.